Today, we'll teach you how to make beef and broccoli, a Cantonese home cooking classic. But as the length of this video might suggest, we did want to do something a little different here. Because, at least in the West, it feels like beef and broccoli seems to be a dish that's a lot of people's introduction to stir frying. So what we want to do here is really drill down and explain all the hows and whys of everything that's going on. Reason being, in a lot of the online discourse regarding stir frying, ever since we started this channel more or less exactly 6 years ago, seem to try to explain things roughly according to this model. It's a model based around a sort of exoticized ideal of restaurant wok frying, and contains a lot of misconceptions about what's actually going on. So, what we'll do here is first go over what would be the general restaurant approach to making a beef and broccoli and why. Then taking that base and showing you how you could mimic those flavors at home, even working out of nothing but a nonstick skillet. So then, first let's get started with broccoli. Now, before anything, I want you to think about how, even in the absence of a beef stir fry, you would personally cook broccoli. I mean, it's a heartier vegetable, so generally speaking, you'd probably steam it, roast it, or blanch it. If you tried to simply saute broccoli straight up, it'd probably end up getting overly charred by the time it all evenly cooks through. Roasting, meanwhile, isn't really a common vegetable technique in Chinese cooking, so what we're left with is blanching or steaming. And generally speaking, a Cantonese restaurant is going to blanch your broccoli first and just keep it on the side. So here, that'll be 1 head's worth, blanched for 90 seconds, and rinsed with cool water to stop the cooking process. Then, in the same way, for the beef, I want you to think about how, even in the absence of a broccoli stir fry, you would personally cook thinly sliced lean meat. Now, this is definitely a time when sautéing would begin to make a lot more sense, though deep frying could also work, and in some cases so could blanching. Of course, the kind of awkward thing about making any sort of intro to stir fry video is that different meats are going to have different considerations. On net, the easiest meat to work with when stir frying is lean pork, which is why that's usually our recommended protein for those first getting started out with a wok. But we're making a beef and broccoli today, one of the more challenging meats, but this also does give us a chance to potentially demystify some of the more involved restaurant approaches. Now, I know that looking at this, you might not immediately think of beef as dry or chewy, but that's because in a Western context, people tend to either braise beef, slow roast it, or just eat it not completely cooked. There's a couple tricks that restaurants will use to counteract that fact though, and they start those tricks with the marinade. Now, marinades in Chinese cuisine, sometimes translated as velveting in English, are to 1. Flavor the meat, and 2. Improve the final texture, something especially important for beef. So what we're going to be doing is adding all of this, so let's go over the why for each one. For flavor, you'll first obviously need some salt, practically above everything else. Be sure not to neglect this. A common mistake that we see people make is forgetting their salt and then compensating with way too much soy sauce. Shaoxing wine, meanwhile, balances that sort of raw meat odor, and then sugar balances the salt. Oyster sauce, meanwhile, is kind of a beef-specific addition. I mean, surf and turf's awesome for a reason, together with black pepper for a similar purpose. The soy sauce, then, is for umami and general flavoring. And then cutting that soy sauce with a splash of dark soy helps deepen the color and make things look more appetizing. On the other hand, the baking soda is just for texture. Alkalines help tenderize the tougher beef, but often you'll see restaurants use an enzyme called papain in the same way. The cornstarch helps give the beef a smooth coating while also preventing overcooking. And sometimes a bit of egg whites also added to the mix for the same reason. The water is another very beef-specific addition, which helps prevent the drier beef from drying out when cooking. Then we'll just mix those in super well, then coat that all with a good slug of oil, which helps ensure that the marinade doesn't leach out. Of course, probably the critical thing that a restaurant would do to prepare this dish is to cook the beef via a technique called passing through oil, which is basically just deep frying by any other name. It's just a wokful of oil, 165 centigrade, tossed in. This velveting deep frying combination is what gives restaurant beef its characteristic texture. But worry not, For our recipe later, I'm definitely aware that most of you aren't willing to walk this mile. Solution forthcoming. Now, either way, at this point, now we've got ourselves some cooked beef and some cooked broccoli. And if you wanted, theoretically, at this point, you could just eat these as is. They'd be perfectly edible and reasonably delectable. So then my question I want you to think about is then, why even stir fry? A lot of the internet would probably turn back to that old model and respond accordingly. And while further cooking definitely does something, at a fundamental level, we believe this is more about layering on a few more flavors. Here being oil infused with aromatics, some sizzling wine and soy sauce, and then finally a final seasoning, all of which are mixed in and coat the ingredients. So, now to start, step 1 to a restaurant stir fry is something called longyao or huaguo, which is getting your wok really hot, then swirling in a bunch of oil, and then dumping it out to give your carbon steel wok a nonstick surface. It's only a move to make carbon steel a bit more slippery. Usually in our videos, we do a simplified version of it, which is to get that wok piping hot, shut off the heat, add in your oil, here about 2 tablespoons or so, and give it a swirl to get a nice nonstick surface. And if you've got a nonstick, this step is completely unnecessary. Then we'll add in the oil and immediately go in with some aromatics. Immediately, because adding minced stuff to already hot oil would be a great way to get some super burnt minced stuff. And again, all we need to do here is infuse the oil with the flavor of the aromatics. Then we'll swirl in a tablespoon of Shaoxing wine, let it sizzle against the hot wok, and again, basically for flavor. Then we'll toss in the beef and give that all a quick stir together. Now, quick aside that in Chinese culinary schools, they'll teach a lot of these cool, fancy stir-frying movements, and really, they are pretty impressive. Online, I see a lot of people trying to mimic those movements with tongs, which does look cool, but on most stoves would actually be counterproductive. The reason those restaurant movements even exist is that because on powerful wok burners, if you don't continuously move stuff around, it'll burn in a matter of seconds. Home stoves are not that hot, and you don't want that much movement. Instead, the home-cooked stir-frying motion is this. 1, scoop. 2, flip. 3, send to the hot center. Again, scoop, flip, send to the center. Definitely don't obsess here, though. Often I am a little lazy and find myself just moving stuff about. Steph sometimes rags on me about it, but it's really fine most of the time. Then we'll swirl in a bit of soy sauce in the same way, and after a brief mix, add in the broccoli. At this point, we do have a choice. Do we want a stir fry that's saucy or not saucy? If you want saucy, add in the left, not saucy, add in the right. And then, once that's thickened, drizzle in a touch of oil for sheen, and then that's basically a restaurant-style beef and broccoli. So, now let's adjust this to a home kitchen using what we just learned. I'm guessing, and correct me if I'm wrong, the biggest hurdle for a lot of you would be that whole passing through oil bit. A lot of kitchens just aren't set up for it. It's a cool technique, but that's okay. You've got 3 choices. First route, and the simplest, would be just to stop caring so much about mimicking restaurants. If you want to know what a home-style beef with Chinese broccoli looks like in Guangdong, it's this. You're not getting that restaurant look and texture, but I don't know, who cares? Because all you need to do to follow this route is just stir-fry your beef. Same marinade, this time in a nonstick, couple tablespoons of oil, don't overthink it. Just cook the beef on high until it's done. You won't be able to tell all your friends that it's better than takeout, but I'm pretty sure that they'd happily scarf it down nonetheless. Second, instead of beef, you could try swapping for that easier to work with pork in its stead. To go this route, just use this marinade instead, and do the same stir-frying process that we just did. Then, your third choice, and what we'll do today, because this is us after all, is to sort of hack together a kind of mimicry of that passing through oil process using an oil quantity more relevant to the average home kitchen. Because really, it's not like we're trying to deep fry a 20-pound turkey or anything. We only need to submerge thinly sliced beef. Our beef is 2 to 3 millimeters, so a ½ centimeter of oil in a large nonstick pan should be enough to get us most of the way there. Of course, because this is a lot less oil, I like getting it up a little hotter at first, about 190 Celsius or so, before dumping the beef in. Also, you might need to slightly futz or flip a couple pieces to cook it all through. But after a quick 45 seconds, we can just dump that all through a fine mesh sieve. And this is reasonably indistinguishable, to me at least. Then, our second consideration, the cooking vessel. Now today, I really wanted to use our nonstick skillet here, basically just to prove a point. That is, while I really like my wok, at its core, it's just a hunk of steel. It's not some sort of magic school bus to Flavorville. I will grant that there's a few moves that are definitely easier in the wok, but with an adjustment or two, a nonstick is also perfectly functional. So then, before frying, let's remember again why we were stir frying. We want to layer our ingredients with the following flavors. 1. Oil infused with aromatics. 2. Sizzled wine and soy sauce. And 3. The final seasoning, whether sprinkled in or mixed in sauce form. So then, let's just keep things uncomplicated. Medium-low flame, 3 to 4 tablespoons of oil. Add in some minced garlic and ginger. Again, the point is just to infuse the oil, so go as fast or as slow as you're comfortable. Once it's gotten fragrant, which is about a minute on my end, we'll sizzle in that wine, which is, admittedly, a little awkward for the wokless. What I'll do here is just up my flame too high, kind of keep the aromatics on one side, hit the other side with the wine, and get ready to cover because this will pop. After about 10 seconds, it should sound a little less angry, so then you can uncover and mix stuff about. Add in your beef, and after a nice coating with the flavored oil, swirl a teaspoon of soy sauce in a similar manner, then in with the blanched broccoli. You want to move quickly at this stage so that the broccoli doesn't release its water. So then in with the sauce, and then once that's thickened, heat off. Drizzle in a half tablespoon oil for sheen, and out.
So, the big question, is this
Better than takeout.
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 Better than 99% of takeout.
Better than your local takeout.
Better than pretty much anything you can get takeout.
Damn sight better than anything in your average high street takeaway.
Crisp and good as the takeout kind, because it's quick cooked in dragon fire.
everyone claims it better than takeout. But the question I want to leave you with is, are all these dishes better? Really? In reality, I've seen people trying to make a better dumpling without being able to pleat one, or a better siu mai without being able to make a proper Cantonese meat filling, or some sort of better stir-fried with some kind of method that doesn't really make sense in either Chinese or Western cooking, or some sort of melt-in-your-mouth beef and broccoli, which who wants their beef and broccoli to melt in their mouth? I get that. Better than takeout is just something people say. But I want you to take 2 seconds to just think about the implication of these words. What you're saying is that you are improving or elevating this takeout style Chinese food. But how? It's certainly not techniques. Is it because
I feel like I'm eating this myself. I'm not adding too much oil. I'm not adding too much MSG and all that stuff. It's fresh. It's glorious.
You know, it's so unhealthy, so cheap, so low quality that you should be ashamed of eating it because it's so full of oil, salt, sugar, MSG, all those things that's not worthy of your wholesome, organic, L1 smoothie lifestyle. Now, I'm not here to hate on a particular person or some food bloggers. I'm just wondering, why is it often Chinese food, or by extension, other Asian cuisines that often got this better than takeout label being slapped on them? My only guess is that Chinese takeout consider a cheap eat, something that's always there, served in the flesh, often under some dim light, not at some kind of exquisitely decorated atmosphere. Something that maybe deep down in many people's heads that doesn't deserve to be respected. A quick Google search will give you better than takeout fried rice, better than takeout tao mein, better than takeout lo mein, you know, the triple classics. But if you search better than restaurant pasta, the general sense you get is the 100 things that I can do to measure my pasta up to restaurant quality. Again, I'm not trying to pick on someone because, again, it's just a mindless saying. But if you just take some time to think about this better than takeout phenomenon, I think we can kind of agree that it's deeply ignorant and incredibly condescending. It completely dismisses all that cooking tradition, culinary skills, and operational ability to create and manage such a big menu in a small space. It overlooks all the steps and processes that it takes to arrive at this food, only left with a very superficial observation of how quick and easy these foods are when grabbing the takeout boxes from the hands of the hardworking people behind the stove. So, is this better than takeout? I mean, we have a rough standard of releasing a recipe that's about 90% there to a quality restaurant. So, maybe, just maybe, in La Choi Dragon's words, it tastes just about as good as the takeout kind. So, try it. We hope you like it. But at the very least, I think we can all respect and appreciate the talented chefs and cooks at all of our favorite Chinese restaurants, whether takeout or otherwise, a little bit more. And of course, recipes in the description box. Again, huge thank you for everyone that's supporting us on Patreon. We had a great 6 years. I hope more great times ahead of us. And if you're new here, subscribe for more Chinese cooking videos. Just as good as the takeout kind, because it's cooked in dragon fire.